What's up, party people? Welcome back to The Question, where you have the questions and I have the answers. And today, as I was talking about earlier in my last video, I'm going to be answering questions about college. If you guys remember, I did a video like this last year when I came back for winter break, talking about what it was like, my first experience with college. I didn't do one at the end of the year. I just forgot to. But I'm going to do one this year just to do like a yearly thing to see how the year has progressed, how have I grown, how has my college experience changed, and maybe with these questions I'll also talk about the stuff that happened the last 2 quarters that I didn't make a video about last year. But mostly I'm going to be, I think, comparing kind of my answers. I got lipstick on my teeth. My answers for this year versus last year, because fall quarter for this year has been completely different from last year. Yeah, but before we get started, please remember to like, comment, subscribe if you're new. I make videos about whatever I please whenever I have time to, and yeah. Without further ado, let's get on to the video, and maybe I'll figure out how to keep lipstick off my teeth. Okay, so I didn't remember all the questions that I answered in the last video, so I just rewatched the last video, and I'm gonna answer the same questions. Something I thought was funny was one completely different look and vibe from the last one, but I'm still wearing the same necklace and I still don't have my selfie stick, so we're still just doing it by hand. And I do have a slight, not a slight cold, but I do have like a weird cough in the back of my throat, so it's nice to know that some things have never changed. That being said, the first question was, why did you choose to attend the college that you go to? And I have not transferred, much to Hofstra's dismay. Okay, anyway, you guys probably know this, but I still go to the University of Denver, and I chose to go because, one, I got in, two, it's far enough away from all my family that I can kind of just be by myself, because being by myself is something that I was scared to do, but was something that I really, really wanted and had been something I was looking forward to for most of my life. But actually, it's really funny things. I've talked to a lot of people at DU and have been like, why did you choose to come here? And unless they're like a specific business major, because DU is known for its business, or if it's for hockey, it's just like, oh yeah, a place I wanted to go to didn't let me in, so now I'm here, you know? It's very rare that you find people at DU whose first choice of college was DU. Most people end up here, but they don't actually choose to go here, which is kind of sad, but I think that's funny. And in a way, I think it puts us all in kind of like the same boat of not really knowing what we want to do with our lives, which is comforting in a way. Okay, the next question was, what was your freshman experience like? And since I have 2 more quarters that I have under my belt now, I can answer that question a lot better. After fall quarter, it went downhill. It went downhill tremendously. Like, I had a lot of good experiences, but I think overall, it was a very harrowing experience. I had 2 relationships which ended very, very poorly. Yeah, so that just got bad, and then I ended a few friendships because they got bad. And yeah, but there was also a lot of good things. I went to a lot of concerts last year. I did make a lot of friends, who I am still friends with this quarter, even though I'm not friends with a lot of people I made friends with last year. I'm just gonna keep like continuously rubbing the front of my teeth because I don't wear lipstick often, and I'm not used to, I haven't figured out quite how to wear lipstick without getting it on my teeth. That being said, I think all in all, it was a freshman year of college. You know, it was me figuring out how to navigate it. It was me figuring out how to navigate making friends. that I didn't have a lot of classes with, because none of us have the same, well, they all have the same major, but I'm in a completely different major. Also, I was still a history major when I made that video. I said I wasn't, but I was technically still a history major, but I did actually change my major. As you guys know, I'm now a religious studies major, which is just like a more niche form of history major in a way. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but like generally that's what it is. And then so far this year, everybody said that this quarter has been like shit, that it's been real shit. And compared to last fall quarter, yeah, it's been hell. It's been a special kind of hell. But I have been determined that I'm just gonna like grow from it. You know, like it's gonna be shit, but I'm gonna endure it, and then I'm gonna be a better person for it. Like that's my mindset going in. That being said, I have spent so much time. My favorite place on campus is any gender neutral bathroom on campus. I have had so many breakdowns on campus last year and this year. Like a good, not a good, but like a normal, I think, Friday night for me is not going out and partying. It is calling the emergency line in the gender neutral bathroom, not because I'm particularly in a crisis or in danger, just because like maybe I'm having a mental breakdown or a panic attack and I don't have anyone else to really reach out to, so I'll call the emergency line, which by the way isn't very helpful. Like they're just volunteers, and I've gotten some of like the widest range of advice, both helpful and not, to talk to, and they usually want calls to be like a good 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes, they'll be like, oh, you're okay to be by yourself? Okay, get out, you know, like go do something else. But also my school has a text service for like mental health crises, and so I'll usually just text them, and they're a lot more helpful because they're actual like trained counselors. Yeah, so this quarter it's been a lot harder, I think, just mentally, and because I don't have the same group of friends that I had last year. Our friend group kind of fell apart, and since I no longer have that one sustained group, it's a lot harder to socialize, and because I have lost a lot of friends and gotten into a lot of dramatic things that have happened this, Jesus fucking Christ, this quarter, which has made it a lot harder. I feel lonely a lot of the time, which is something I still felt last year, but I think it's more pronounced now that I don't have that like safety net of a friend group that I had last year. Okay, next question is, what is my favorite thing about the college? And this is overstated, I think. I get really annoyed when people say this. Everyone's like, DU is such a beautiful campus, and I hate that, but it's true. DU is such a truly beautiful campus. It's an outdoor campus, so there's just buildings scattered everywhere, and it's like a arboretum, so there's trees everywhere, and there's a lot of lawns, and it's nice, and the level of pollution makes our sunrises and sunsets really beautiful, and we don't have a lot of clouds, which is a good contrast to Washington's gray skies, so we can have a lot of blue skies and sunny days. Supposedly Colorado gets 300 days of sunshine, and I love it, and our campus is like really close to the Rockies. You can see them really clearly, and it's beautiful. And I don't know if that's my favorite thing about it, but I think that's definitely a highlight. I was going on a run with the chancellor, and he asked me how it was going, and at that point I'd had a shit week. I had genuinely thought about dropping out because of how shitty my week was, and I told him that, and I said, today, like this week was the worst, and I thought of dropping out, and then I was walking to breakfast and I had to stop because it was just beautiful outside. And even if I'm having the shittiest week, I can be walking to my classes, or walking to breakfast, or walking to the gym, and just be like, wow, I get to wake up and see this beautiful sight every goddamn day. And that was enough, apparently, for me to not drop out. So I say that's a definite highlight of the campus. But also, this doesn't really have to do with, I think it does. Honestly, I think this does have to do with DU. So I'm a religious studies major, and I fucking love my major so much. I have enjoyed every single class I've taken with my major. I have enjoyed every single professor. Every professor for my major, except like one. There's this one guy who nobody likes because he's kind of a fascist, like actually. But every professor I've had for that major is so great, and they genuinely love what they're teaching, and they're so knowledgeable, and they're so personable too. Like, I can come in and just spend hours talking to them about whatever the fuck in regards to the major, obviously, but like, and they're so easy to talk to, and they're really excited to talk to you about it because it is such a small major. So anybody who takes interest in it, it's like we're kind of a little family, except for the one guy who's kind of like this weird, like creepy uncle. But we are kind of like a family, and like we all like are vying for each other's success, and they care so much about me when I don't. You know, like some days, like everybody asks me, they're like, you're getting a useless major, you know, like, what are you going to do with the major? And I'm like, I don't know, not kill myself because I hate what I do every day. And I'll be talking to my major people, and they're like, look at all these internships you can get into. And if you want to go to grad school, here are all these programs. We will write letters of recommendation for you to do these things because we want you to succeed and because we know you can do it. And I think a lot of my friends in their majors don't have that same experience with their professors. And so I think that's something also that I am very thankful for and that I love about DU. And so I think that'd be like my major, god damn it, my major and the campus is really beautiful. And those are two things that honestly keep me going because I just love them so much, and they bring so much joy to my day, even when I'm having like the absolute worst depression episodes or having the shittiest week. There's always something that will make me smile. The next question is, what's my least favorite thing about my campus? All the buildings are so cheaply made. Even the newest ones are so cheaply made. And as I said, they're not accessible. And the elevators never work. So I think the shoddy craftsmanship that has to do with the buildings, and the so DU has a very racist background. It's not the exact place of the Sand Creek Massacre. If you don't know what the Sand Creek Massacre is, Google it. But basically, our founder was the governor of Colorado Territory, who was instrumental in the orchestration of the Sand Creek Massacre. It was done so that we could acquire the land to build DU. And then on DU, we have the Iliff School of Theology, which is a grad school. And though technically a separate institution from DU, they're on the same land and have worked in conjunction with each other, especially my major being religious studies, and it's a school of theology. A lot of my classes intertwine with the grad program. But the school was gifted a book, Bound in the Flesh of a Native American, which you can read about in an essay called Red Skin, Tan Hide, which once again you can Google, it's free online. And the book is still there. They took the cover off in the 70s, but it was put on display as like a part of school pride for years after the school opened. And so that history being said, our moniker is the Pioneer. It's no longer technically our mascot because the mascot was removed, but the moniker is still there. We're still the DU Pioneers. But because of recent success with hockey, a lot of buildings around DU have started using the Pioneer mascot again, to advertise their connection to the school, and DU is okay with that. And because of our specific history with the indigenous population, many indigenous students want to change the moniker from the DU Pios because in our specific situation, it's kind of racist, especially, because of the massacre and because of the literal book bound in the skin of Native American flesh. And so there's been a campaign to change it, and they won't. They spent, I think, $500,000 on a shitty new logo, which everybody hates, but they refuse to change the moniker because it'll cost too much to change all the merchandising, and because they don't want to piss off the alumni and the donors of the school who pay a lot of money for the school. And that's shitty. Also, once again, they have a freedom of speech policy for professors, basically saying that professors can teach kind of whatever they want. They can make their own curriculums, and they're not gonna vet them. And as I said, we have a known fascist sympathizer on our religious studies department. And even though multiple people have complained about him and how he's anti-Semitic and he's a kind of Nazi, they won't get rid of him because it's his freedom of speech to teach whatever the fuck he wants, even if it's incorrect. And LGBT students have talked about how professors will have class debates about trans rights or queer rights, and that makes them uncomfortable because they're literally debating their identity, they're debating whether they should exist or not, whether they should have rights, and that makes them really uncomfortable, and DU won't do anything about that. They also don't have gender-neutral bathrooms in every building, which makes sense for the older buildings, but even for the newer buildings, they don't have any. And so that is an issue, and the school doesn't really seem like it's wanting to change that, despite a lot of student protest regarding this fact. Favorite place to study on campus? I think I said this last year, and I'm gonna say it again. It's still Mary Read, which is the haunted building on campus. And for all of you who ask, I do talk to the picture of Mary Read in the library. She is my homie, she's my bestie. I love her, she's vying for my success, I'm vying for her success. We're best friends. Favorite place to eat on campus? That's my figure, I'm sorry. I still mostly eat in the dining hall, don't eat out that much, just because I can't afford it. But they did redo the options in the dining hall between last year and this year, and they just got a taco bar, and that is my new favorite place, is the taco bar. And then what are you studying? Obviously I said I'm a religious studies major, but that being said, I'm a religious studies major, and I'm gonna get a minor in mathematics, Judaic studies, and critical race and ethnic studies. The question is, are the career fairs good there? And I think last time I said I don't know because I've never been to one, and this year I still don't know because I've still never been to one. And I don't think I'm ever gonna go to one because I'm not that invested in my future. What are the financial aid opportunities like? Well, they keep raising the tuition. Every single year there's a tuition increase, and I'm pretty sure it's like that across the nation for every school, but it sucks because they don't raise the amount of federal aid aid that we get. So a lot of people who receive a fuck ton of aid to go to this school, they raise the tuition. Now it's like, ah, shit. Even with this copious amount of money that the government and the school gives me to go here, I can't pay for it, Also, this is something that I had my work-study job, and I still have my work-study job. They award you, be like, hey, you can work up to, you can earn this amount in work-study. They have no incentive to pay you all of that, So, because I've argued, because I get like $3,000 of work study, and I work as often as I am available to work, you know, at, I think Denver's minimum wage was like $16 an hour. And that only covered half of how much I was awarded. And so I went to my boss this year and I was like, hey, I only got half of what I was awarded. Is there a way that I can maybe get paid more so I get the rest of the money, because I have the same schedule basically as last year and I can't work more hours, but I would like to receive the amount that was awarded to me? And they said no. Like, they, for work study, do not have any incentive to give you all of the money that you are awarded. So there's that. They do have specific department-based scholarships and major-based scholarships, but those are also like highly competitive and hard to get into. Always fill out the FAFSA. No one is gonna remind you to fill out the FAFSA. You have to fill that shit out every single year. And I always forget, and I still end up doing it because they open it in like October and they close it in January. And whenever I'm on break, I'm like, ah, shit, I'm supposed to do it. But the earlier you do it, the more money you're likely to get, because it's a first come, first served basis. So if you do it right when it opens, there's more money that they can award to you. But like, no one reminds you, you know, like when you're in high school, they're like, make sure to fill out the FAFSA, make sure to fill out the FAFSA. So if you are going to go to college, you have money to go to college, you know. Nobody reminds you of this shit. You go to college, you make it there, and then everybody forgets that you have to apply to this thing every year. Granted, it gets easier to apply because you can just be like, hey, use all the information that I had last year, because it's pretty much the same, you know. And you can go into the IRS, and so you don't actually have to like manually fill out your parents' tax information. But you have to keep filling it out every single year, and I keep forgetting because nobody ever talks about it. That being said, DU is a private school, and so most people there can just afford to go, and if they do have loans or they do have financial aid, it's not as much, I think, as me and a few of my friends, but like, we're definitely not the majority who go there, so it's not as big of a deal for them, I think. Also, DU has something called the CSS profile, which is something specific to their school. Not all schools have it, and so you have to remember to do that as well. And it's gotten a lot easier to fill out, but last year it was hell, especially when you have divorced parents, because filling it out is like, you have to choose which parents' information you use, because you can't use both, you have to use one. And if you use each, like, it has to be the same one for both forms, and if it's different, like I learned last year, then I have to fill out a whole like thing saying I'm not trying to like scam the government, that my parents aren't secretly still married, we're just trying to get like more money because we're saying they're divorced, and it was like a whole big deal. Okay, so then this one was incoming advice for freshmen. I don't think I have a lot better advice than I already did. So I guess advice for sophomores, it's gonna suck. Like, the sophomore slump is real. You're not a freshman anymore. That newness has worn off. I think probably the most useful advice I was given, which is the advice I hated the most, because I was like, no, I'm gonna be the exception. I think everybody thinks they're gonna be the exception for this advice. But it's something that my ex told me, and I hate it because he gave a lot of really good advice about a lot of things. I don't want him to be right, but he is. And it's the, you're gonna meet people in 20 minutes that you're not gonna care about in 20 weeks. Basically, the friends that you make your freshman year are most likely not gonna be the friends that you still have your senior year. I say this as a sophomore, but it really is true. And this is something that he said, is that when you're in high school, it's easy to maintain friendships. When you're like middle school, high school, it's easy to maintain friendships and maintain relationships because you're around each other all the time. You know, you go to school together, you're in class together, you live near each other, you live in the same town. And so it's really easy because you have to see them all the time to be friends with them. But when you're in college and you're living in separate dorms, you are going into completely different classes, you know, completely different like life plans. It's very likely you have to actually work harder to maintain those friendships. That of course you're going through all these things, you're changing and they're changing, and you know, very often you aren't going to be the same friends you were when you met. So for example, last year I had a really solid friend group, like my entire year, and now I don't talk to half of them, you know? None of us talk to each other. And that's just how it is you're going to keep making friends and you're going to keep no longer being friends with people, and that's life, and it's going to be upsetting. So I'm not going to say don't be upset over it, like expect it, don't be sad because this happened. No, be fucking devastated, because losing a friend is losing a friend, you know? Especially I think it's a lot harder to lose friends your sophomore year, because you know, like freshman year, this was like your lifeline in a way, you know, this was your anchor, you know, and all the crazy stuff would happen, but you always had someone or a group to go back to. And if you lose that, it's hard because you feel like you're just kind of lost and drifting. But this is the same advice I had last year, just like everybody's scared all the time. For sophomores, everybody's lost all the time, and everybody's stressed, and everybody's alone, and nobody knows what to do. And that doesn't make it less scary, but everybody's there. And you do have to actually reach out more. You do have to work harder. You do have to put in that work to initiate contact and initiate friend events. And so you better get really fucking comfortable with doing that, because you are going to have to. You cannot count on other people to remember to invite you or to invite you, because most everybody's doing the exact same thing of it's like, oh, I'm just gonna be in my little corner, and then if somebody invites me, then it'll be fine. If then you're all kind of disappointed that nobody invites you, be the person to invite others, even if you don't know what the fuck to do. I sit alone in my room a lot of the time because I don't go out, I don't party, I don't like to party, and because I don't have my friend group anymore, no one really invites me to do things. But I've started, you know, like I invite one person over for a movie night, you know, like I try to do once a week, and it's not a lot, but it's small. Or there's a group of friends that I think I want to say I'm not part of the group, but I'm adjacent to it, and they hold like a Smash tournament every Saturday, and so I try to go to that. Like, I guess, don't let yourself isolate, because it's going to become a lot easier to do so, but don't let yourself. Yeah. What is the community atmosphere like? None. There is absolutely no sense of community on this campus, I think. I'm not going to say everybody's like in it for themselves, but there's like micro communities on the campus. This could be clubs, affinity groups, sports, and it's that community over everything else usually. There's no larger like DU sense of community. There is no school loyalty, I think, except for maybe if you are in a sport, but there is no broader sense of DU community. It's always like, this place is trash, these things are trash, you know. Like, I think the only time we come together as a school is when our hockey team won the national championships, or whenever tour groups are there, because everyone's like, fuck these tour groups, why the fuck are there children on this campus, what the hell is this? That is the only time I've ever seen us come together. But other than that, we're usually like at each other's throats, talking the worst shit about other micro communities within the group. Okay, last question. I feel like this video is going to be super long already though, because the last video was 24 minutes, and I think I've definitely talked a lot more than I did last time, maybe. So last question was, is anything that surprised you about going to college? And I guess my question would be, is there anything that surprised you about this year versus last year? And as I said, I think what surprised me is how alone I am all the time. Like I watch a lot of TikTok and a lot of YouTube, and most people in 20s are like, no one talks about how like actually alone you are. And I'm 20 now, which is weird. But yeah, I think it is that like you don't realize how alone you're gonna be a lot of the time. That surprised me. I think what surprised me also this year was how young I feel, I guess. I feel like in the media they portray it, if it's like as you get older, there's like distinct age markers, you know, like you can tell when you're older, or you can tell when someone's older. And I'm here, and I'm definitely a different person than I was last year, and definitely like a different person than I was all the previous years. But at the same time, I'm still all those people. And so even though I'm 20 and I'm a sophomore in college, and that's wild, it's like I'm still the person who's getting used to high school, you know, like I'm still, like I still just turned 18, you know. It's weird that I'm 20. And the thing is, between being 18 and being 20 is that it's only 2 years, you know, but it feels like so much is supposed to change. Like those are two big numbers in our culture. And it's like, this has to be like a big difference. And there is, but there isn't. You know, like I still feel the exact same that I felt. There's no, like sometimes it'll really, like I'll just be vibing and it'll hit me and it's like, damn, I'm like an adult. Like I paid taxes last year, you know, like I had to announce my taxes and my pay stubs on the financial aid submissions this year. And that's wild. But at the same time, it's like, I'm still a kid and taxes are still new and weird and not at all part of my like routine life yet. And I don't know if they'll ever will be, but I'm pretty sure there will be a time when I will. And it's like, I'm 20 right now and I don't even feel like I'm 20. I feel like I'm 16 and I still can't imagine possibly being 40. The thing is, when I'm 40, I'm probably still gonna think that I'm like 25, because you don't feel at all like how the movies and TV shows say you're supposed to feel. And a lot of the time that's going to be terrifying, because you're going to be like, what if I'm doing it wrong? You know, what if everything is a lie and nothing is the way it is supposed to be? And everything is a lie. We should not be basing our expectations and our lives off of Hollywood, because they're casting like 30-year-old people as teenagers, and that creates unrealistic expectations for ourselves. But also because everything is idealized and fictional. Like, life is so much more boring and exciting and complicated and has layers than anything that TV or movies could possibly portray. And so going in and living these lives and passing these milestones and being like, well, why don't I feel like anything? Everybody feels that. Everybody's disappointed because they're not going to have that Hollywood ending. But that's the thing, is like, I've surpassed so many Hollywood endings, and so has everybody else. And, you know, to quote BoJack Horseman, there's the best day of your life, and then there's the day after. You know, you have your Hollywood ending, and then you keep living. That's it. So that being said, so long and thanks for all the fish. Be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes.